Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the British and Irish Professional Cup in affiliation with ITB Esports. My name is still Nachtfish. By my side is going to be still Orion, as there's no sight of New Lake. So, I mean, by this point, you're just New. You're Irish now, Orion.
I'm not going to do an Irish accent because it would be one, incredibly embarrassing, and two, deeply offensive to any of the Irish players watching. So you're not getting that out of me.
I tried. I tried. I wanted you to do it. But what we are going to try is find out as well who's going to go out here in our lower bracket. It is the round of 24. We're going to say goodbye to 8 players overall, 17th to 24th. Ooh, and it's a toughie. We go to match 1, N7X, DvinJo, Socks, and Idoless, all within 6 seeds of one another.
Yep, N7 qualifying in 12th place, Socks in 17th, I believe. Yeah, Socks in 17th, DvinJo in 14th. God, this spreadsheet is... Why are the positions so far away from the player names? For goodness sake. And then is the other one Idoless. Idoless was 18th. So yeah, all these players qualifying very close together. We've just seen DvinJo drop out of that upper bracket. N7, the other player coming from the upper bracket, Socks and Idol progressing through that first round of lowers.
Yeah. And that first, I mean, that win, yeah, that was, of course, yesterday. They had a breather, but it still can give you a lot of momentum if you've already won in the lower bracket. Socks coming in through with exactly that game win. Idoless coming in P2 from his round. But crucially, right now, it's the way for the players from the upper bracket. How have you dropped down, right? Have you been swept? Have you been absolutely, like, curb stomped? Or did you give a strong performance? Because that is exactly what we saw out of DvinJo. He went to finals early, to last chance early, but he still survived 5 rounds on last chance.
Yeah, and I mean, N7 as well really surprised us last week. I can't remember who exactly he was playing against, but he's always been a dark horse. Definitely in BIPL, he was not on anyone's radar, really. And we were all extremely surprised by how good he was and how consistent his pace is in rounds. He's definitely more of a rounds player than time attack, I would say, just because he rarely crashes. That's the best caster's curse I've ever done, by the way, because he's going to crash this round, isn't he? There we go. There goes DvinJo, though. But yeah, N7 is honestly maybe a favorite to win this. DvinJo, we saw in the previous round, did look good, and because of Wizzy's slight inconsistencies, probably maybe looked a bit better than usual because he was that close to Wizzy and Leo. So we'll see with DvinJo, because DvinJo is one of those players that just kind of sends it every round and can make some big mistakes, whereas N7 just drives fast and consistently almost every round. Idol as well can be inconsistent sometimes. Last week on the round server, I was noticing that his consistency wasn't that optimal, but I have been told that on his day, Idol can be extremely fast.
On his day, Idol can be fast, and it's not about being the quickest, it's about not being in that bottom 2 here, as we will have a different map rotation this time than what we had in the upper bracket quarterfinal. Every round having a unique map rotation, and this one starting off with poles, then we'll go over to Candy Crush after that frame shift, and we'll have map 4 as Hoga, and that, Orion, is possibly one of the harshest map rotations you could have.
Yeah, well, if there is an incredibly dominant performance from one player and a not so dominant performance from another, then it's possible that they might drop down after 3 rounds and not even get to Hoga. But I mean, say you get to Hoga on like 15, 20 points, and you are clearly the weakest of the bunch, it's a rough map to try and defend that and defend any possible last chances that you might be on as well.
Yeah, and that last chance on Hoga is definitely something you want to desperately try to avoid, as we have a second round going on. DvinJo going for a safe finish because, I mean, he knew he could, and indeed he could indeed, but 3 players with a subpar times, only Sok with a somewhat acceptable one, 1 second behind world record, as after 2 rounds, expectedly so, the field very close together.
Yeah, that was a really strange one there. I'm not sure why DvinJo went for that safe finish. He looked like he had the speed. Maybe he just clipped or thought that had the splits on and saw that there was someone a considerable distance behind, so went to try and safe it. N7 has not clipped there, but he has found himself a little way behind the field after losing the gear on the grass following that slowdown, and is going to be at the back of the field for now. Meanwhile, the other 3 players all separated by mere tenths at the start, at the front. Sox trying to overtake DvinJo, doing his best to stay on the tail. DvinJo with a wider line is going to carry more speed through, and Sox is definitely a suboptimal line. Might even be overtaken by Idol, who is a little bit too far back. DvinJo, though, with a big touch, is going to promote Idol into second and Sox into first. Just the finish to go here. N7 might even be back in things as well, who has got DvinJo and is going to get him on the line as well. So DvinJo from first place all the way down to last there. Nobody else making a mistake. That's really going to be costing DvinJo at the back.
Unfortunately, DvinJo already in last place, and it's gonna, that difference between him and, well, Idol currently in P2 only growing larger. He has been very strong in that last match that we just seen, but this time around, DvinJo struggling here on poles early on. No clean round from him thus far. 2 last places. Definitely not how you want to start. On the other end, though, Sox with a very consistent effort. Nothing really happening for him. He's just flying under the radar, just keeping it clean. And that's really what promotes him currently into first place. DvinJo, though, again, early on chart and early on lead, but it is his consistency that we are rightfully questioning at the moment.
Yeah, reminder that it's N7 and DvinJo that have come from the upper bracket, Sox and Idol from the lower. I do say Sox so far being the most consistent, but it seems like DvinJo does have that ultimate pace in him, because he's going to finish about 0.2, 0.3 ahead of the field here. Oh, no, he's not. No, he's not. How was that happen then? I saw him go up into the finish, and then he was behind everyone. What has happened there?
I presume, this is pure speculation, but I presume DvinJo just didn't go for the most direct route to the finish, and that has cost him dearly. It could have been -1, instead it's -6, and if he was, he would currently be sitting on 76 points. That's not too bad. He would be in striking distance of both N7 and Idol. Sox, the only player that's not making any mistakes, I wanted to say, but then of course Sox and Idol both just for good measure, completely not just grazed the wall, they tried the airbag test and they both failed horribly.
Yeah, DvinJo has made a mistake as well, but he's only 0.6 behind N7, who can just cruise to a victory here. Idol and Sox are separated by 2 seconds, so I feel like this round could finish as the scoreboard looks now. DvinJo is actually catching N7 though, who I don't know if he's clipped or just had to release, but I think the gap is insurmountable at the finish for DvinJo. N7 calmly into the finish. Maybe, I see where DvinJo went wrong. If you go too far to the right there, he probably just hit the wall or clipped something and then just managed to make it into the finish, because getting into that finish the quickest way, you want to be as on the right as possible. So I think DvinJo just sent it too hard and ended up going into the wall before he hit the finish.
Yeah, maybe he tried to minimize the finish too much. But that's no matter here anymore. DvinJo will move on to map 2, will move on to Candy Crush, the scene of his latest defeat in last place. And Candy Crush, not the map that was particularly strong for DvinJo in that last match, but these are new opponents. We have seen that pace though on polls. It was looking very promising. Now though, on Candy Crush, it is actually DvinJo who has the best map ranking out of the 4.
Looking at what the up-to-date world record is as well. There is a channel. Candy Crush hasn't been beaten for a while, actually. It is a 56-351 by Wizzy. Is that what we've got on our stream as well?
I will be able to tell you once we are in the round, Orion. And
That is true. We're on our cameras right now. Yep.
It's a 50, if it's a 56 something. I remember it being a 56 something, but my memory is not precise enough behind the decimal points. Who needs significant figures in racing games? Who needs 3 stick figs, right? A second is more than enough to separate a field, right?
Not in Trackmania, unfortunately, as we did have a couple of close rounds on Candy. I believe it was Roy and possibly even Wizzy even tied one of the rounds to the thousands as well. So those little increments of time definitely matter here. And, I mean, we'll look at the scoreboard as well. DvinJo having a pretty nightmarish start, actually. Obviously, everyone started out on 100, and in 5 rounds, he has lost a total of 32 points. So going from looking incredibly strong against Wizzy, Leo, and Roy Boy in the upper bracket to just looking like he's feeling a bit deflated, really, here in this lower bracket against what you would presume is weaker opposition.
Yeah, losing 32 points in your first outing, definitely not ideal, but right behind him is Idol on 72, so he's not too far away. It's only 10 points to the safe zone to Sox, so definitely something that is surmountable here on a Candy Crush. The world record, by the way, is 56.351 according to our overlay, and that is the very correct world record, though I doubt that either of these 4 players are going to be able to beat Wizzy's time. DvinJo, though, leading the charge comfortably. He's going to finish in P1. Behind him, though, it's Chaos, N7, Sox, and Idol on top of one another. Who's going to finish last? It's going to be Idol, just a little bit too far to the outside in the end, and that costs him the speed and the line. He's going to bleed 10 points. He's going to move into last place.
Yeah, much better round from DvinJo there. Half a second off world record. Finishes in first place and only drops down 1 point. Idoless now moves into 4th place, but the gaps aren't that big. It's a total of 16 points between N7 in first and Idol in last. And N7 is now in first. We had Sox in the lead for a while, but N7 has taken the lead there. DvinJo has made a very early mistake in this round, though, possibly even on the plastic or at the start. I didn't quite see it. So it is a 3-horse race at the moment. Sox just hanging back behind Idol and N7. But there is a lot of time to be gained on this outside dirt turn, which he has done. He's closed the gap up very nicely there. And also on the downhill plastic and the final push towards the finish as well.
And that is just coming up here, that final push to the finish line. N7 and Idol pretty much on top of one another. It's inseparable. 7,000th of a second, but Idol has the better line, has the more direct approach to the finish, and will finish in P1 from P4 to P1, and DvinJo from P1 down to P4. It is absolute chaos at the bottom of the scoreboard, but crucially, both the lower bracket players are still within a shot of making it through. Idol and Sox currently in P3 and P2, and N7 coming from the upper bracket is not too far ahead of them.
Yeah, DvinJo having a bit of a nightmare, really. We saw him perform really well against strong competition, but it just kind of seems like he's given up a bit here, really. And Idol and Sox in particular coming from the lower bracket, both putting in really strong performances. Idol seems like he's ironed out his inconsistencies that were plaguing him last week, and is now driving much more coherently.
And that coherence can be seen. Idol definitely has the pace in him here on Candy Crush to mitigate the points deficit that he has. He goes wide on the plastic to have a better line down the downhill. Nearly jumps against the checkpoint, though. Now is hunted by his fellow man in the mud, hunted by DvinJo, but he will survive. Idol in P1, DvinJo P2, Sox P3, and N7X in P4. N7 bleeding a lot of the lead that he once had, but crucially for him, Sox, not a strong finish, but it is going to put the field a lot closer together. As we move on to our next rounds here on the 4th round here on Candy Crush. All 4 players very close to one another. All four players need a strong result now. If N7 was to finish last again, this field would be within probably 5 points.
Yeah, Idol's made a big mistake at the start, and that's going to bring N7 back into it, who, for the first time in a long time, we saw drop 10 points there, and it has brought the field a lot closer together. That's a big mistake from Sox, though. I think he might have just clipped on the outside. Sorry, no, that was DvinJo on the outside, and Sox now in first place. DvinJo hasn't lost too much time, but he is in a solid third place at the moment, as Idol too far back to really make a comeback and challenge DvinJo with another mistake, though, and he's going to have to go for the safe finish, so Idol might be spared 10 points here. He is traveling quite slowly, though, and DvinJo does make it into that safe finish in plenty of time. Idol in last place, going to drop 10 points, but the field's still very tightly packed, Max.
Yeah, very close together. But we do have, once again, it's just a back and forth on every map. We see those gaps separated between N7 Sox in the top 2, then Idol and DvinJo struggling behind. But these gaps can be closed within a matter of rounds, with the not necessarily inconsistency that we see, but with the peaks that each of these players have, if they can just keep it together, if they can play to their potential. Idol not playing to his potential, he's gonna clash the post, and so is Sox with a bonk on the side of the wall. DvinJo and N7 going to chase this one away.
This is a very important round for DvinJo here in last place, and I think on our last round of Candy Crush here. So needs to be damage limitation from DvinJo. No mistakes. I mean, even a second place is favorable, but yeah, if he makes a mistake and drops down to third, fourth place, that's pretty catastrophic for him. He's got a golden opportunity here to save some of his points, which he has been bleeding a lot of. He is going to make the finish as well. So a good round from DvinJo. Nice time as well. Sox and Idol actually not too far away from each other, but it is going to be DvinJo and N7 first and second, Idol third, Sox in fourth, dropping 10 points as well, which we haven't seen all too often either.
And now half-time on this particular matchup in the lower round of 24. We have one player on 44, one on 47, one on 50, all very, very close together. And that P2 still within reach, but even P1, even N7, not out of reach at all. I think he's in the mid to high 50 points here going into our latter half. And now it is Frame Shift. Frame Shift, again, for me, one of the more difficult maps, technically, not from the root. I think technically, though, one of the more difficult maps. We haven't seen a lot of mistakes on it last time around, but if people are going to risk it, if people are going to jump, for example, through that triangle checkpoint, it could prove to be deadly.
Yeah, and N7 is one of the only players that still doesn't go for that, but it seems pretty equal, to be honest. He always loses initially and then comes back with more speed. So I don't think that it actually yields that much of a time gain, to be honest, but I personally felt more comfortable doing it that way instead of going out wide, because it means you actually have a better line to avoid the pole for a start. If you go out wide, you are much more straight in a straight line and then have to turn right, whereas if you jump through that little bit of the checkpoint, you're already you've got the angle for the downhill going for you already. So most players actually opting to take that. I believe it was found by Jaffa about a couple of days into the time attack phase, and then everyone just kind of copied it because everyone saw his world record. But yeah, N7 opting not to, but as I say, no real time difference, just matter of feeling comfortable.
Yeah, it's a matter of personal preference here for all the players. I personally feel more at ease going to the outside because triangle checkpoints scare the living hell out of me. It's just too precise. Let's see who of the players will go to the outside, except everyone will actually go to the outside except for DvinJo, who jumps the triangle. He has a better line down the hill, but has to break more instead because he's carrying more momentum. Is going to be made up by the rest of the pack. So as you said, there's probably not a lot of not a lot of speed differential between both approaches. DvinJo, though, back in P1 is going to try to hold on to it, and holding on to it he does. We will finish the procession. DvinJo, N7, Sox, and Idol.
Yep, DvinJo there having a much better round. Definitely had a shaky start to this match, but has put in some better rounds as of late. Again, finishing first, only losing 1 point. But we're not even really close to putting a player on last chance. We've got 5 rounds on here, and the player in 4th place, Idol, is currently on 34 points. So even if he had an absolute calamity on frame shift, I mean, if he lost all 4 rounds in a row, yes, he would be on last chance. But I don't think that that's going to happen because he drove a good round there with DvinJo. Looks pretty consistent. Sox losing that gear, and you can see how much time you lose by losing that. DvinJo holding on to it, going through the triangle as well, and losing a bit of time initially, but Sox gaining it back on the exit. So it is difficult to tell whether it's faster or not because you seemingly have less speed on the exit on the downhill and through the drift as well.
Mhm.
But I think it's a 50-50. It's pretty even, right?
Probably, if done perfectly, it will be quicker to jump the triangle as it is just the more direct line. But what is also probably very good for Idol is that he's not finishing last year, able to snipe N7 at the end. DvinJo finishing in a P1 regardless of what happens behind him, and is now slowly but surely working his way up the order. Now in P2 and only 1 point behind N7. Crucially though, 4 points ahead of Sox.
Yep, frame shift seeming to be DvinJo's preferred map here, and it looks like we will be going to Hoga to decide who will be advancing in the bracket.
Scary.
Onto it, yeah, that is scary. I mean, Idol here wants to start having some good rounds because you do not want to be on less than 20 points going on to Hoga. When I casted last week, I would definitely say that it was his worst map in terms of ultimate consistency. I think it's probably everyone's worst map in terms of ultimate consistency, to be honest. So, I don't know. DvinJo wasn't great on Hoga either. Like, there was one round that I remember very specifically where,
no.
That's a big bonk for DvinJo.
Oh no, oh no, on the map where he looked so good, DvinJo, he bonks out and he's going to finish a certain P4. Granted, everyone has to make the finish up, and we have no whizzy shenanigans going on as DvinJo loses his lead to, well, especially to Sox, who took full advantage of the fact that both DvinJo and N7 had a bit of a howler with his first place finish. Last round, though, on frame shift here, 40, 40, 35, 25. The field definitely a lot closer together than in our previous upper bracket fixture.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a real bloodbath on Hoga, and I don't think it's going to be a battle of pace either. It is just going to be a battle of survival of the fittest. I think will ultimately end up being the victor in this match, as Sox has a slightly slower mid-part to everybody else, just losing the gear on that dirt again, but you do have to full risk if you want to keep that gear. You have to go so close to the outside and carry as much momentum through, and it only loses you 0.1 or 0.2, so really it's a toss-up. Would you rather lose the gear and fall a little bit behind, or try and risk to keep it and crash and end up incredibly far behind? DvinJo, speaking of crash, with another clip. N7 as well, passing the seas for Sox to come through, just driving safe lines the whole round, and in the end ends up in 2nd place.
And is that trade-off consistency in this format is absolutely key, and no one perhaps showing that better than Soxu. He doesn't have the ultimate pace most of the time, but he doesn't really make mistakes either, Orion, and it's what we talked about a lot when we think about the World Tour and like Challenger League and Grand League. Yes, pace is important, but it's more important to get it to the line. In order to finish first, you must finish.
Exactly, and Sox is just doing that to great effect. He's even in 1st place in the match as well. Currently on 37 points, so it is a slim lead, but a lead nonetheless. And we've seen both DvinJo and N7 make mistakes together in 2 rounds now, finishing in last and 3rd respectively. So Sox reaping the rewards of the inconsistency of his opponents, and Idol as well, hanging on there on 24 points. DvinJo looked like he was mounting a comeback at the start of this map. I believe he was even like almost knocking on the door of 1st place, and he is showing that form once again here, but it could be too little too late because he is now, well, he's 3 points off last place when he was 1 point off first place after the first few rounds on Frameshift.
But crucially, the pack still very much close together, all
They are.
inside of 10 points. Going into Hoga, the best points that we have is 31. And that is scary. And Frameshift, especially a scary map here for N7, who's had a comfortable lead, I would say, going into it. But I think he finished fourth 3 or 4 times here, if I'm not mistaken. He had an absolute shocker, and that's just put him right into the dirt. He's right with the rest of the pack. And now on Hoga, it is that battle. It's not, do you have the pace? It is, can you survive? Can you hold on for dear life? And that's what you mentioned earlier, Ryan, especially with the added pressure of this being an elimination match.
Yeah, given how close everyone is at the moment, nobody is safe here.
Yeah.
Like, Sox on 31 points, we have 5 rounds. If he crashes 3 of them, 1 point. That's all he'll have left. So, yeah, no one is safe. Nothing is over yet. I feel like we will be saying goodbye to 1 player at least on this map. Possibly 2, but I think we'll end up going back onto Candy Crush, having lost 1 player and with another on last chance.
Yeah, that is the real question. Will this map, will Hoga be the final map of this fixture, or will we go back around, wrap ourselves back to the polls? Only time will tell. The points not looking too good as we look on from the side wall. No one making any mistakes in the first little bit. Sox, though, falling a tiny bit behind as we go over the engine off and into the map proper.
Yep. Well, Sox had a bit more speed through that engine off, and he has managed to get Idoless. Everyone taking a nice outside line on the dirt. DvinJo looking the best so far. He's pulled out a 0.2 gap. 0.3 gap over N7 actually. Now we get into the more flowy part of the midfield where you don't really tend to see too many crashes or too many mistakes happen. The only thing you can really do wrong here is clip the outside there or get a dodgy line into the bobsleigh, which sends you to the moon, as we saw Jaffa do in spectacular fashion last week. This sausage drift not proving too difficult for everyone, and it seems like it's going to be a fairly standard round. Never mind, Sox with a clip over that risky finish, and despite Idol being so far back, is Sox going to get in? Yes, he is. I think Idol must have gone for that risky finish and missed it. He's had to go for the safe one this time, but DvinJo, great time there, 57.2. That's 4/10 off the world record. Huge time from DvinJo there.
That's absolutely massive, and it's a massive, as much as it's a massive result for DvinJo, it is an absolutely shocking one for Idol, who only started the map with 21 points, is now on 11, but crucially, he's on 11. So he's got at least 2 more rounds of not being in last chance mode. As we go on further here again on Hoga. World record of 56.6 by EPOS, a very high 56.6, but DvinJo seems to again have ultimate pace as he demonstrated on Frameshift. The question is, can he this time pair it with ultimate consistency as well?
Well, he's going to have to. It's now quite literally do or die for DvinJo because we're in the lower bracket. If you don't have the pace and consistency here to match your opponents, that is it. We will be saying goodbye, and it would be a shame to lose DvinJo as well because his ultimate pace is unreal. Like, I believe he even set world record on this for a bit. N7 has made a mistake at the back. DvinJo makes it, Sox makes it, and Idol makes it. So big mistake from N7, -10 for him as well. But a -6 for Idoless is going to put him on 5 points. DvinJo and Sox looking to be the 2 favorites now. Idol and N7 in those past 2 rounds, losing those 10 points, have really dropped down the field. But we'll see if DvinJo and Sox can hold on at the top. And if it is going to be N7 and Idol, it will be the first to go onto those last chance places.
Yeah, and with Idol, he needs that P1 or P2 finish to avoid going on to last chance. This is a good start indeed. N7 as well following suit as he's in the same situation that Idol was before. He will not drop to last chance now, but might sooner rather than later. DvinJo having a horrible start, so is Sox, are two more consistent players on Hoga, falling victim to the most difficult map of the map pack. N7 and Idol having about a 3/10 gap as we head into the latter parts of Hoga.
Yeah, the two players in third and fourth, in first and second in this round. DvinJo pushing hard, though. Had a bit of a dodgy bobsleigh, and that might even allow Sox to come back through here. He goes wide on the drift. More speed on the exit. N7 straight into the sign. Who is it going to be? Is Idol going to be able to stave off DvinJo? That's a crash from Sox as well. DvinJo in first. It's going to be Sox in second. Idol third. It all just imploded at the end there. DvinJo and Sox, though, the two players in first and second, finishing first and second in that round. Idol and N7, despite looking like they were not going to be dropping too many points, actually ending up in third and fourth. Idol on last chance. N7 only 1 point to his name now, so regardless of where he finishes in this round, he will also be dropping on to last chance. He's made a mistake right at the start. I mean, it's not going to matter. He could have won the round and still the result would have been the same. But for these three players, it's going to be a big round here.
It wouldn't matter for him, but it absolutely does matter for the rest of the field, who can now minimize their potential points loss. And let's not forget, Idol is on last chance. So he's not only minimizing his points loss, but he is also ensuring that he stays alive for at least one more round. If, and that's a big if, he doesn't make a major mistake for the rest. He just needs to save it as much as he can and then hit the risky finish. As Sox once again tipping over quite a bit, but not enough for any sort of slowdown shenanigans.
Yeah, Sox really needing to finish in front of Idol here. Is everyone going to make it? Sox just about almost got that land bug, but is going to make it in third place. N7 after that early mistake in last and going down to last chance. Sox on 13 points, DvinJo on 20. So DvinJo in a good position now. And obviously it is the bottom two that drops out, and there are two players on last chance. So N7 and Idol need to avoid that last place and try and force Sox and DvinJo into mistakes.
That is the match plan, and DvinJo in the last round, he was on that last chance and he made it far. We know that people can survive for quite a bit once they hit that last chance. We've seen it multiple rounds. Idol and N7 just need clean rounds from now out. Sox currently in P4 is doing both of them a favor, but he's going to overtake Idol here on the dirt.
Does so in third place right now. Idol needs to try and find something here. Needs to overtake at the end, but Sox with a good bobsleigh. It's all going to come down to the last turn. Really needs to hope that someone misses the risky finish. Very close to the wall. He has clipped the checkpoint as well, and I feel like that could be curtains for Idol. He's going to have to go for the safe, surely. Everyone else... Oh, N7 hasn't made it. Idol's in. N7 is out. That is... Wait, no. No,
he made it a second try.
Idol's out. It's fine. It's fine.
Oh, N7, he felt the risky fin won, but because of the checkpoint placement, he is still quicker than Idol, who had to go for that safe finish. N7 therefore saves himself, but he has a big points deficit to displace. 16 points. That is quite a few rounds that N7 now has to survive. And let's not forget, N7 coming from the upper bracket down, possibly never to return deeper into the tournament.
Well, we are on poles, and that did look like N7's strongest map, in my opinion. So if there was ever a time for him to be winning rounds and mounting a comeback, he's got the perfect map to do it on. Sox, I feel like his strategy has just been driving safe. But N7 at this point needs to just push as hard as he possibly can, I feel, because he's going to have to beat Sox, basically, and just be faster without making those mistakes.
But those mistakes, they didn't creep in as much on poles in the other maps, though. Those mistakes definitely did creep in for N7, as DvinJo is just by seeding again the quickest player here on poles with a with the 5th ranking in the overall leaderboards to his name, so he'll be delighted that Pulse is on again. He must be feeling quite safe, but I'm very sure that both N7 and Sox have something to say about that. It is elimination from the tournament that is on the line. It is elimination. Unfortunately, already that has occurred to Idol. We're just waiting for who joins him down in the gutter. N7 on last chance, Sox on 10 points, and DvinJo on 19.
Well, I will draw attention to that warm-up round, which we don't usually do, but DvinJo just drove within 3/10 of world record on the warm-up round, so, oh, never mind.
So he's got a bonk now.
Yeah.
That's what always happens. You drive one good round, and then it's like 0 to 0, down the drain you go.
Yeah, well, N7 is going to be relishing that because all he has to do now is finish the round cleanly. He might actually want to try and snipe Sox here because Sox would lose 6 points, and N7 in a battle of survival currently does have a much better line as well. He has overtaken Sox here, so we're going to come down to the last drift, but he's got a better line there as well. Into this last little bit, hopefully no one clipping. N7 actually going to be winning the round here. DvinJo will lose a full 10 points and Sox -6. Optimum ending there for N7 to that round. And now we have something very spicy in the works.
He couldn't have dreamt of anything better. Potentially, N7 can force a triple last chance. He finishes first, Sox in second, and DvinJo in third would be the result of that. Any other way, we'll only have potentially even just N7 on last chance, but that's an awful first line. He has to break quite a bit, and now it's Sox and DvinJo just need to save it.
Yep. N7, 9/10 behind here. It's going to have to be a mistake from either of these players, otherwise N7 will be dropping out of that bracket. There are still places that they could make mistakes. There's this little thing here, but Sox and DvinJo getting through cleanly. N7 pushing as hard as he possibly can, but the gap feels insurmountable, barring a mistake from either player. DvinJo going a little bit wide there, but not clipping, and I feel like that could be the conclusion. Is there going to be any mistakes at the end? No, both players make the jump. DvinJo makes the finish as well, and that will be goodbye to N7, but it is going to be a grandstand finish here between Sox and DvinJo to decide who gets the better seeding and the easier matchup in the next round of the lower bracket.
Who will survive? We have to say goodbye to N7 straight from the upper bracket down out of the tournament in shared 17th position. Sox and DvinJo, though, this round, it doesn't matter. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't even matter in the small scheme of things, because both after this will be on last chance. That is the way the points distribution will work out. So the next round, Orion, that's going to be the shootout. And that's, again, the question. Do you save it, or do you just go balls to the wall? As this round is continuing, DvinJo definitely taking a more casual approach to it. Sox trying to see what the limits are, trying to test the limits with a 54.4. Definitely not a bad time, but DvinJo not perhaps showing his hand to the fullest extent. It is double last chance.
It is double last chance, and I would say both players, they both made it into the next round of the lower bracket. Just go for it. Treat it like a cup of the day grand final. Just full send. See what your pace is like. See if you can hold your nerve when you're pushing. And, well, that's anticlimactic.
Good thing the shootout lasted a whole 3 seconds.
3 seconds.
A whole 3 seconds of excitement. Oh, wait
a minute.
Wait a second. Sox made a mistake, and then now DvinJo suddenly all back in it. It is still 2-0. Oh my God, Sox is just absolutely bottling it. Give the man a bottle. Give it to him quickly.
Okay, surely there's no more mistakes, right? The end of the map is easy, and nobody. I've never seen anyone fail the risky finish. Socks is crashed
Yeah,
anyway.
sorry. Yeah, okay.
Oh dear. Oh dear. How have they gone through this entire match, finishing 1 and 2, and then they both drive around like this, man? Come on.
I don't know if any of these if any of DvinJo or Socks, if they go to the University of East Anglia, but I feel like with this performance, they would fit right in there. As this is a Rocket League reference for everyone that didn't get that didn't get it. UEA known for bottling when it matters most, as is Sox. DvinJo though, moving on to the next round. Sox does as well, but he will have a harder matchup. As two matches have finished already. Orion, we see in match number 4, Crisp taking first position, and Babs in P2 saying, and we have to say goodbye to Zephyr and Matt. In another matchup, Ro, of course, are not able to play today, so I have to say goodbye to him. And Comrade Lewis also having to go home. Royboy and Nairuko going further on in the bracket.
Yeah, that's an important match as well, that match 2, because Roy making it is big. Louis played really well last week, especially, and yeah, that's a shame to see him drop out there because he was completely resurgent. I don't think it was prospects. I think it was low as round 1 that I casted, and he was just exceptionally good. Just put in a really dominant performance, and we interviewed him afterwards, and even he was surprised at how well he'd done. But yeah, Niruku had a bit of a shaky week last week, but seems to have got his rounds consistency under control. And obviously, Roy, we would expect him to go through as well. And that is interesting, Niruku beating Roy. Roy has looked better in rounds recently. Niruku struggling with consistency, but I think that extra week of practice has probably really helped him. So good to see the comeback from Niruku and him being back on form as well. We've got the final match result as well, with Jorday in first, Liffy in second, and we will be saying goodbye to Big Q and Charged JT, who finished 4th and 3rd respectively.
And that is the only match for both of the players dropping from the upper bracket are surviving. In all other matches, it's been 1 for upper bracket, 1 from lower bracket to go through, leading us to a lower bracket around 3 matches that we're also going to see today, being in the form of 1 match, Crisp, DvinJo, Royboy, and Liffy. So DvinJo and Royboy being reunited. In the other match, it's going to be Jorday, Nairuko, Babs, and Socks coming in that one. And I think we are going to have a interview potentially after this one. But Orion, after the first 2 rounds today, you know, we've had to say goodbye to 8 players now. Is this the warm-up just for what is to come? Do you think we're going to see even better results? Or when do you think, or if at all, fatigue will set it?
Possibly last match. I mean, it's a long day. We're going to be playing until 7 o'clock here. And I imagine most of these players have been practicing throughout this morning, throughout the past week, and the week before that, leading up to the seeding event as well. So burnout could be setting in for some players. You know, you play to a point, and then it just starts to, yeah, as you say, fatigue starts to set in. I think we will have a pretty electric matchup coming up, though, because we are going back up to the upper bracket for our next match with the semi-final. And I don't know if we're doing 1 or 2.
I think we're doing 1.
Production.
Yeah. Killjoy said we're doing 1. So we're doing match 1. And that match is Bosbez, Epos, Leo, and Acros. That is... Yeah, that is ridiculous. That is super stacked. It's ridiculous to think that 2 of these have to battle all the way through the lower bracket to make it back to grand finals.
Yeah, it really is. I feel like we've got 3 of what I refer to as the big 4 in there, of Boz, Epos, and Acros. Wizzy is in that other semi-final against Hendo, Gibbonster, and Jaffa. But Hendo actually beating Acros in the quarters was definitely a surprise to me. Hendo, self-confessed, not great at rounds. His time attack is phenomenal, but historically his rounds pace just hasn't been quite on par with the very top players. But that is beating Akros, who is always tends to be Mr. Consistent. That's a statement for Hendo, and that is something that he will carry with him going forwards. Can he challenge the likes of Wizzy? Maybe. If Wizzy's inconsistencies from earlier continue to plague him, we could see Hendo actually finishing first in that semi-final. But you would expect Hendo and Wizzy to be the two players to go through, although Jaffa also is a very strong player.
It's a wild
and
card.
did have some world records early on in the time attack as well. I feel like Gibbonster is probably the weak link there. He's done exceptionally well to make it to the top 8, given that he qualified in 14th place. So he's already way above his seed in that top 8. But yeah, Gibbonster potentially a weak link in that one, and possibly Leo as well, being the underdog in the match that we're going to be casting. You'd feel like Boz is the favorite, but Epos recently has been absolutely on a tear, and if anyone is going to beat Boz at this point, I feel like it could be Epos. Leo and Akros not having as strong performances compared to those two titans of UK Trackmania.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an uphill battle for Leo, but before we go to that, we still have an interview to do. We still have DvinJo, who's going to be joining us very, very shortly. He has joined us. DvinJo, welcome to the stream, and also GG's. Congrats to moving on in the lower bracket.
Hello, and thank you.
Yeah, Orion, what's your first... We've seen DvinJo now for 2 matches in a row, right?
We have.
He's moved on from the upper bracket to the lower bracket, and my first question for you, DvinJo, is how do you deal with that sort of a bit mentally? You just drop down, it's an incredibly close match again. Do you just take it in stride, or did you have anything, going through yet in those 10-15 minutes that you could collect yourself?
I mean, that match could have gone either way. I was happy with how I played. A bit upset, but it doesn't really matter. I was expecting myself to be lower bracket anyway.
Well, you went out of the upper bracket, but it looked like you potentially could have actually stayed in that and gotten top 2 there. Were you disappointed to drop to lowers? Do you think that you could have maybe stayed in that upper bracket for perhaps another round longer, or was that kind of the expected result that you'd be dropping to lowers?
I mean, that clip onto the drift.
Oh yeah, that
hurt a little bit. But if I didn't clip, I probably could have been like another round or 2.
Yeah.
I mean, you survived already for 4 rounds before that one in that upper bracket, but again, going down here into the match, going against N7, Sox, and Idol, it wasn't the best start from you at all. You sort of had to fight back from the back of the field. Did the doubts started to creep in for you, or were you hard off? Don't even matter about the points. I'm just driving my own race here.
I mean, I guess my mental went a bit into the mud, but as soon as I checked, hold on, saw the score being close, I'm like, okay, I need to actually focus to win and stay in.
It seemed like you had a bit of a resurgence on Hoga. Is that a map that you're most comfortable on, or are all the maps kind of just the same to you? You just drive and you feel equally comfortable across all of them?
I mean, Hoga, it really depends, because that first drift is the main part of the whole map.
Yeah.
And if I nail that, then I'm like, okay, this is going to be a good run.
Okay, cool.
I mean, also then, in the end, I mean, talk us through it. You go onto polls, you know that the 1 round is utterly meaningless. You sort of troll a bit, and then you're both on last chance, and then absolute chaos. And see, we were hyping it up on cards. We were trying to say, go on, this is going to be a shootout, and it lasted for the better part of like 3 seconds, and you instantly bonked. Like, did you just not care about it, or were you like, okay, pressure's off, I can do whatever I want now?
I laughed a little bit, not gonna lie. But then I checked the splits, okay, I'm like 1 second behind. Let's see what I can do. And then next thing I know, Socks crashed?
Yeah, he
somewhere.
crashed.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, just save and first.
He touched the outside dirt, and then after the grass banking, he then clipped the little black platform and just went full into the left-hand side, and that's where you overtook. So yeah, it was it was like your typical kind of cup of the day Div 1 final where chaos is just everywhere you look. But yeah, ultimately both of you making it through in that lower bracket. And I mean, how far do you think you can go? Because you looked pretty good in the upper bracket against, you know, top 16 caliber players. Do you think you can keep advancing and make it back all the way to that lower final, or do you think that there are players that are stronger than you that will be coming down from the upper bracket and will eventually end up knocking you out?
I mean, if I played like the first match today, then I could see myself getting far. But otherwise, could be a little bit of a troll moment. But
I mean, yeah.
But yeah,
Sorry.
next match, I kind of have to focus because there's Crisp and Roy that could pose a threat.
I mean, I just want a clear prediction. Top 8 means you get into the money.
Yeah.
Do you think you get into the money?
Copium, yes. Realistically, top 10.
Realistically, I mean that's like as close as you could be, right? So
Yeah.
it is you're backing yourself. I'm just gonna say that you're backing yourself to make it into the money places. Thank you, DvinJo, for coming on, and thank you for competing. And also, good luck in your next round. Enjoy your break. Use it wisely. Probably eat something, I would suggest. And we'll see you when we see you again, hopefully winning your next round.
Cheers. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And Orion, 2 rounds down, 3 more to go. And as you said, we are moving back to the upper bracket now for a absolutely banger match. I think we do actually have the brackets to show. If I'm not mistaken, we do. We can see what happened in every of the lower bracket round 2 matches. Again, DvinJo and Sox taking P1 and P2 here in the match that we just shown on stream. Nairuko, Real Royboy, P1, P2 in the second match. Liffey and Jorday moving on out of map 3. That's a horrible mangle of the 2. That's like a hybrid monster. And then Crisp and Babs moving on from match 4. Saying goodbye to Rook, Louis, Idoless, N7, Charts, JT, Vic, Matby, and Zephyr. Wow. 8 players gone. And we're going to get rid of another 8 today.
Yep, that we will be back down at the lower bracket at 5 o'clock, I believe. And we will then stay with the lower bracket at 6 o'clock as well. But before that, we're going to have some spicy matches in the upper bracket, aren't we?
Yeah, spicy match coming up right after this break. It's Boss Bears, Epos, Leo, and the Crows putting on a show for us after the break.